Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and I have never purchased a mid-gen refresh ever. I've always been a one-and-done console kind of guy, and I've always admitted my lack of technical prowess when it comes to anything hardware-related. That's just because my brain never truly computed with that sort of stuff. So when I bought my PCs, I've always been a pre-built kind of guy. I know some of you are like spazzing out in your seats hearing this, but I've always been a simple man. Buy my console, play my games, move on with my life. So I was very interested when the rumor mill was spinning mighty quickly for this PlayStation 5 Pro, and also, to my surprise, was a lot of anticipation for this announcement, because I feel like we've been down this road before where people get really excited for the mid-gen refresh, thinking it's going to be something like the new Nintendo 3DS, where it at least has a couple of exclusive games to it. But PlayStation delivered on many things I exactly expected from them, whether it be a wild price tag or piecemealing you an entire setup for your PS5. I've said for years now, and I feel like this is the moment I can point to and be like, see what I mean, is that PlayStation so desperately wants to be Apple. In that Apple, and I say this as someone who, by the way, right next to me, iPhone, right here behind me, let me unplug it, my iPad. I love Apple stuff, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to computers, I'll never touch a Mac or anything like that. But yeah, like Apple definitely has their own little hardware ecosystem, and they used to sell things to you in a little package, but then they started to change things like how the charging worked and how the headphones worked, and they gradually made you buy more and more into their hardware cycle. So when I see PlayStation stepping out and going, hey, it's $700 or your regional equivalent for the PS5 Pro, then you have to buy the vertical stand, which goes for $30. And then on top of that, if you want to play your games physically, which, you know, look behind me, please. Yeah, that would be me. That's another $80. So without even including tax, we're talking in the United States over $800 for me to upgrade my system. Now, I have more nuanced thoughts than that, but I'm already like the weakest demographic for this stuff. Like, I have never bought a mid-gen refresh, and I don't know if I ever will. But looking at this, I'm like, no, I'm not convinced. And reading the reaction online, I'm glad to see I'm not really that alone in that fact, but I can understand why some people would be interested in it. So for those who haven't caught up, today was a very quick 9-minute presentation from Mark Cerny, who's the lead architect design over at PlayStation. And it's there he showed off the PlayStation 5 with what they call the big three. They talked about upgrade GPU, advanced ray tracing, and AI-driven upscaling, which they write here on the PlayStation blog, breaking down each one. The upgrade GPU, they say with PS5 Pro, we are upgrading to a GPU that has 67% more compute units than the current PS5 console and 85% faster memory. Overall, this enables up to 45% faster rendering for gameplay, making the experience much smoother. Advanced ray tracing technology says we've added even more powerful ray tracing that provides more dynamic reflection and refraction of light. This allows the rays to be cast at double and at times triple the speeds of the current PS5 console. And AI-driven upscaling, where they are introducing PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, and AI-driven upscaling that uses machine learning-based technology to provide super sharp image clarity by adding an extraordinary amount of detail. Furthermore, on the feature list, other enhancements include PS5 Pro Game Boost, which can apply to more than 8,500 backward-compatible PS4 games. Note that they say here, just pause real quick, that it can apply to. So a lot of people saw this and went, 8,500 games are getting the basically borderline treatment of Xbox FPS boost, but they're saying more like this is available for those games if they choose to be patched. And we'll get into a list of games that are going to be patched using the PS5 Pro. Continuing on, they say this feature may stabilize or improve the performance of supported PS5 and PS4 games. Enhanced image quality for PS4 games is also available to improve the resolution on select PS4 games. PS5 Pro will also launch with the latest wireless technology, Wi-Fi 7, in territories supporting this standard. VRR and 8K gaming are also supported. Now, PlayStation really wants to twist my arm. You make Bloodborne 60 frames on the PS5 Pro, and I might go out and pick one up. But I do think they'd be skipping out on a lot of money if they went that route. And based on what we're seeing here, PlayStation does like money like any big corporation out there. Continuing on, they say it's humbling to see how game creators have embraced the latest technology from PS5 Pro, and several games will be patched with free software updates for gamers to take advantage of PS5 Pro's features. These games can be identified with a PS5 Pro enhanced label within their title. Some games you can look forward to include blockbuster hits from PlayStation Studios and our third-party partners such as Alan Wake 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Demon's Souls, Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Gran Turismo 7, Hogwarts Legacy, Horizon Forbidden West, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, The Crew Motorfest, The First Descendant, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, and more. All right, I'll get into the list in detail in a moment here, but this is what I mean again about PlayStation living in their own Apple-like world, where they're pretty much saying, hey gamer, you're about to make this extremely expensive purchase of $700 plus, $800 plus dollars, and the least we can give you is a vague number of 8,500 games that benefit from Game Pro Boost, but also a list of 13 current titles and more, only one of these titles being an actual new upcoming release. Like, if you want me to buy into this for the holiday season, I kind of want to know the direct, visible impact on games coming out later through your third-party partners or your first-party studios, not just buying a system to replay old games with patches. And this kind of underlines, again, the lack of guarantee that developers can and will take full advantage of this. But yeah, I just look at this and go like, man, I want more detail on what I'm going to be buying beyond this list. I will say I am, out of everything on this list, most excited to check out, if I were to have bought this system, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because I think that is one of the few exceptions I made to fidelity mode where I went, I care way more about the visuals than the frame rate here. Also, they did something underneath the hood where I didn't really feel the 30 frames in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I absolutely adored that game, though, and my time spent with it. But I do wish I got to play it in 60 frames. And now the idea that there's no compromise, as Mark Cerny talked about, does make it a little tantalizing. But I know my chances of really going back to that with how busy I am with reviewing games now is 0%. So it's just a cool idea. But I'm curious to see what other games get patched. They do wrap up this post saying PS5 Pro will launch on November 7th, 2024, and will be available at participating retailers and directly from PlayStation at direct.playstation.com, with pre-orders beginning in a couple of weeks now on September 26, 2024. I also wanted to throw in there, I thought it was so funny to see them promoting PS5 Pro perfectly fits within the PS5 family of products and is compatible within the PS5 accessories currently available, including PSVR 2, PlayStation Portal, DualSense Edge, Access Controller, Pulse Elite, and Pulse Explorer. The user interface and network services will also remain the same as PS5. And again, that's where I just go back to like my Apple point. Like, it's just so many different pieces of tech, and a lot of these are selling better than I've heard they ever expected. Something like PlayStation Portal has really blown PlayStation's expectations out of the water. So I think, quite frankly, even though a lot of people are like raising a shitstorm online, that's not going to matter. I think this will end up selling a lot anyway, just given how the PlayStation Portal did well. And I think that was fighting a real uphill battle against things like the Steam Deck, which was, I think, the ideal handheld. I think PlayStation just has a strong grip on the gaming community, and a lot of people really bought in hard with the PS4, and they have that generational kind of nostalgia to them dating back to the original PlayStation. I think Astrobot, a game that I've been playing, by the way, physical copy for this is sick. On the inside, it actually comes with like a little poster and everything. It's awesome. I think this game highlights the history of PlayStation and why people really love PlayStation, where they would buy this Pro happily. For me, as someone funding a game and paying people to help work on videos, I don't got the money at all for a $800 investment if I want to continue to play my physical games, which is a bit of a bummer, because the reason it was a little tantalizing this generation is we are getting a lot more, that's 30 frames moments. And I feel like I would love to have the option on consoles to brute force my way to 60 frames at 4K. But I'm going to say what I'm sure a lot of people have already said online, which is I'm not even pro PC. Look, I run Retro Rebound. You already know I love the traditional gaming experience with my physical copy in hand. But look, man, I just got to say that PC looking kind of nice right now. You know, you look at what you're paying for here versus some of the tech that you can get in your computer for a similar price tag, or the upgrades you can get in your computer for that price tag for a little bit more. I've seen some argue that it's pretty competitive to get pretty consistent 4K 60 out of a console at that price tag, but I've also seen others argue a little bit about just go buy a computer. And at that point, I'm kind of like pro PC when it comes down to it, because part of the benefit of the consoles is not only how simplistic it is for people like me who just can't be bothered to figure out the technical stuff, but also it's always been a cheaper option that plays everything for many years. The reason it's also tantalizing this generation, though, is since we've had so many of those, that's 30 frames moment, you're seeing kind of a limit in talent in certain areas of game development, where some developers are really pulling off miracles with 4K 60 with certain games, and how quickly they load versus other games that just cannot seem to get over these technical hurdles. And the way Sony was kind of selling this is, oh, you know, this will basically allow us to push through all of those problems. But as someone who covers a lot of Xbox, I've been there before with the, oh, world's most powerful console as we continue to underperform. And sometimes that comes down to little things that we learn about later in the generation, like parity clauses between the Series X and S. But sometimes it does come down to the developers have to be able to utilize the power within the box properly at the most efficient level. And so you're going to get that out of like PlayStation first party. But when it comes to third party, they're not as inclined to figure that type of stuff out. So I feel like I would be buying into this for future games, really, that hopefully will be able to brute force their way to 4K 60. And I just look at the price tag and the way they're piecemealing things. Like, I don't want this full conversation to completely dovetail into just like the general economics of our world right now. But yeah, we live in a very expensive time as it stands. Food is ridiculously expensive right now. Interest rates are super high. Like, it's a lot of money to just live, and gaming is and always will be a luxury, but this is like a top level luxury purchase. Like, oh, you've got real cash to blow type of spending right here. For me, even if it came with everything bundled in and it was $700, I would still have somewhat of an issue with the price point, just given how, again, expensive everything else around me is. But at the same time, I do have to be understanding of the tech that's packed in there, and PlayStation also likely accounting for some level of inflation here. I know hardware is typically sold at a loss, so it makes you wonder about that. But yeah, in today's world, I could never spend this much money unless it was a brand new system that's going to be packing in brand new games that I otherwise couldn't experience. But the idea that my purchase would now crawl up to $80 to support my setup and the way I game is ridiculous. And again, I'm not a mid-gen refresh guy at all, but I try to keep an open mind with these things and be like, okay, like, I love buying new systems. Like, I love being part of launch day. There is an excitement to that. Like, even when I bought my PS Portal, there was a little bit of excitement of, okay, cool, I can see myself getting use out of this. And I do use my PS Portal quite frequently as sort of a very expensive companion device. But ever since PlayStation shut down the PS Play app on Logitech G Cloud, yeah, I've been getting a lot more reps in with my PS Portal. But I just look at this price tag here and all the other games coming out and what I personally have to spend money on. And in my situation, I don't really find too much value in this. I get why some people would, but I truly do think it is overpriced. And that's a shame to say, because it, you know, like, PlayStation very quickly got out of the Concord hole with something like Astrobot, where it did take all the heat off Concord, and now they're back in the hole again. So yeah, PlayStation not really helping themselves out here in the latter part of the year. But I just want to talk about the PS5 Pro, give some thoughts on it. I will not be picking it up, but will you? Let me know down below. Other than that, please take excellent care of yourselves, and I will catch you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.